All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, May 9th, 2014. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules on UCY.TV. I am here solo this morning. It's 63 degrees and overcast here in Rochester today, but hey, better than a kick in the teeth and 30 degrees, so I'm not complaining too much. Happy Friday, everybody. It is a decent Friday. It is hotter than hell in this office. So at some point I'm going to have to sneak over and prop that door open to let some of this computer heat out. I know today, Iota and Mike SLC said they were going to call in, so that might be fun. I have all kinds of news I guess we could take a look at that happened since yesterday, or we could just be silly like yesterday and talk about Barbies. That was pretty funny. So, you know what? Let's all go for a walk. I think that's what we should do. Just take a walk and prop this door open, because I gotta tell you, it is too damn hot in here. And being hot and sweaty and doing radio are not conducive, so here we're gonna take a tour. Take a tour. Look, the mic can come all the way over here. Here we go. Oh. Yeah, actually the weather has finally broken enough that we could start planting, which is pretty exciting. I did see in my travels, this past weekend, some of the farmers had finally started tilling the field, so that's good. Pretty wicked thunderstorms here yesterday, but nothing really fell of any significance. So I just hope that this isn't going to turn into one of those years where now finally the temperature's here and we find out we don't have any water. Because that would kind of suck too. Let me think. So, I was up working yesterday and, woke up. How am I really that far behind? I woke up like half in the middle of doing something and I must have just fallen asleep in the process of doing it. You gotta love that, don't you? I don't know. I just woke up. So, how about we all have a cup of coffee? Take a sip. I don't even have a coffee cup to advertise, but that's okay. We could talk about things such as artificial life today. There were a bunch of stories that came out yesterday that made me rise an eyebrow and go, huh? I know that if anyone knows anything about DNA, and maybe this is something, Mike, I really would like to get your opinion. We never talked about that living foundry, and this whole thing that came out yesterday is a part of that. They're messing with DNA. DNA is for proteins, CATG. They, adenosine, I don't know, cytosine. They all had names like tyrosine. They all had names like that, high school biology. But, ATCG were the four letters for them. Well, now they have created 2 new proteins that will go into the DNA strand. And they're calling those X and Y, and I don't think they have anything to do with male and female. They just, those are the names they gave them. But what's interesting is that it takes the building blocks then with the 4. I think they were saying that it can make up to 20 proteins, and that's what we have as living organisms on the planet, right? Because all living organisms have DNA with CATG in it. So it gives you up to 20 different proteins for the body to produce to make this, that, or the other thing. Well, now by adding this X and Y amino, they're able to make, I think the number was 176 new proteins proteins that have never before been seen on planet Earth. They just don't exist today. So tell me if that's not a little bit frightening. 'Cause I know I'm pretty scared about it, and they're letting this shit go in the wild. So, I don't know, here we go. If I can find the clip. Actually, I have a couple clips. But, if I can find this clip, I'll play it for you and we can talk a little bit more. Yeah, there were two of them. Wait. Hey, if anybody out there wants to call, today I have the phones unforwarded, so they will come to me. 718-717-8296. That is the UCY call-in number. Alright, here we go. Put myself in. And I gotta make sure that I don't have you guys cranked up. Gotta hate feedback. Alright, looks like it's alright. There we go. Okay, ATCG. Living organism made with artificial genetic code. Oh, I'm so excited.
And this morning it's being called a major scientific breakthrough. Researchers at the Scripps Institute say they created the first microbes containing artificial DNA, and it could alter our basic genetic code, the fundamental building blocks of life.
It may also lead to new drugs and treatments. Our Dr. David Agus is in Los Angeles. He is a professor of medicine and engineering at the University of Southern California. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
So what did they do and what did they accomplish?
So throughout history, there have been 4 building blocks in DNA in every organism on Earth. That's humans, that's mice, that's bacteria. And for the first time, they made 2 new letters. So 4 letters to 6 letters to actually make DNA. And so it changes our code. It changes everything that's possible. You know, there are 20 amino acids in nature made up by these letters. Now we can go to potentially 150 or 170. So the potentials are limitless. Science is at a new point where things are going to take off.
And what about, Doctor, this man-made DNA? What could it mean for treating disease?
Well, all of a sudden, we can make organisms that can actually make new proteins. So, for example, several years ago, it cost $10,000 to make malaria treatment for a year. Well, if you engineer bacteria to have the enzymes to make that drug, it now costs $10. Mm-hmm. And so when we now have these new codes, we can start to make lots of new drugs, vaccines, and it really opens a new window for how we treat disease, diagnose disease, and eventually prevent disease.
And go ahead. Well, what risk are they, both ethically and also potentially new grounds that we have not explored yet?
In 1953, when the double helix of DNA came out, everyone was afraid that we would misuse DNA. Well, then came insulin, and we made insulin from DNA, and we actually radically improved human life. The hope is the same happens here. But with the God particle happening early last year, this is the God complex, and I'm certainly worried that we need to establish boundaries.
All right, Dr. David Agus, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, established boundaries like a complete lack of any moral human fiber that exists in the science world right now. What do you think of that? So, completely new organisms. And we can do it now. We got it all set up and we figured out how to manipulate all that DNA. And now we added the X and the Y principle. I wish I knew, like, what they were all about and what they could do. Oh, wait, we can make pharmaceuticals. Whoa, yay! The little thing. That was my excitement. I saw something yesterday that had talked about, here, wait, I think maybe it's on my page. It had talked about how damn great it was. You knew this was coming. I've been talking about this forever. Yes, the nanoparticle, the wonders of science, the nanoparticle. We can do so many things with the nanoparticle. And we have been. We've been releasing them into the environment and putting them in your food, putting them in your vaccines. And oh, did we forget to tell you that nanos mean that they're little robots? And we can make them do things remotely now? Oh, what? We can put them in your brain and have them retrieve or remove memories? Yes, we can. That was a real experiment. Yes, we really had it working. Well, guess what? We want you to take the nanoparticle. You don't? What? You won't take it, but it cures cancer. Yes, there was a story that came out yesterday. Now with nanoparticles, they can set it up to do a 1-2 shot with cancer meds. And oh, it's been so successful. So take your nanoparticles. We want to inject them into you and cure you of your cancer. As we're putting X and Y proteins into you. That's what I see. I don't like this shit. X and Y don't exist in nature. And they shouldn't be let loose in nature. And I want to know what the hell they're going to put this X and Y protein into. And what's it made out of? Shouldn't we be asking some big ass questions? Isn't this kind of a big change that nobody got your vote on? He even mentions the God particle, and that comes from the Large Hadron Collider. Nobody got my vote on that either. You know, crazy mad science gone mad with absolutely no moral codes or rules is a bit mad, don't you think? I do. And with the ability now, with the artificial intelligence that they've been improving daily, add to that all the synthetic biology, and as far as they've come, I mean, for God's sake, DARPA's been able to put all your body functions on a chip. They have a chip now that they can exactly mimic with, they've taken the biological cells and they've turned them into synthetic equivalents. And they've been able to exactly replicate bodily systems on a chip in silicone. They've been able to put all those systems together and make a fully workable bodily system unit that they could, oh yes, test drugs on. What they don't tell you is that, bodily functions all working together on a chip could one day lead to cyborgs. Do you see that? I do. I mean, DARPA created the Cyborg Technology Office, did they not? That was just a few months ago. Obama was at the White House. I was cutting all those Made Brussels episodes. I don't know if anyone caught them last night. Drew and Chuck, for the summer, they took their show back to an hour. I don't blame them. I mean, I've only been here a couple days a week. It's hard, man. And we've all been doing these shows consistently for at least a year. I mean, I think everybody here just about, at least our core people have been here at least a year. At UCY now, let's see, it was August. It'll be 2 years if you can even believe it. And we were broadcasting before that even, but officially, I think it was August 19th we went on the air with, NY. But, you know, after a full year or two, or some of us were even on the other network or two before this, so we're going into 3 and 4 years doing this stuff nonstop. I don't blame anybody, man. I just noticed, like, people come and people go, and in the beginning I'd be like, how could they just disappear? Well, son, I think I figured it out. You get burned out. You get really burned out. And all you want is your life back and you want to sleep. That's all I want to do. I want to sleep and I want my life back. Oh, I think Mike's calling in. Hey, you must have your cell phone. So I think it's still the same number. Oh, don't hit the answer button. See, I'm tired. I almost knocked the call off here. Alright, hold on. I'm going to add you to conference, Mikey. Good morning.
Good morning.
Who's this?
I just wanted to say there are several of us here that are very grateful that you have been doing these shows for this long. Thank you.
That's Mike. I didn't sound like you for a second.
It's a different phone. I'm using my pay phone, cell phone. So I just wanted to call and I didn't mean to interrupt what you were talking about at the time. But
oh, it's okay. I started rambling. Well, I'm glad that you guys have been listening for this long, because in the very beginning, nobody listened. They just showed up one day.
Well, maybe you made a really good, wave somewhere and picked up these callers right out of the universe. I don't know. But we've been following your work for years, really.
What?
I mean,
what, the crazy lady?
Well, it was the crazy guy in the morning, really. It was JJ that I heard first. And he'd get me all fired up, and him and Rob, and that get me kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So I loved it. It was really good, and that show, and it's still a really good show. You're all part of my life. I can't imagine getting up and not turning on the ladies and at least listening while I do things. So it's just cool.
Well, I think we need to get tambourines or something.
Tambourines?
Yeah, I only have finger cymbals, a noisemaker, actually 2 noisemakers, one of the spinny ones and one of the blowy ones.
For the kazoo?
No kazoo. I have, let's see.
I'll bring that.
There's that one, wait. And then we have the, finger cymbals. And then we have the, spinning. And it's purple too. And it almost looked like it said no party, but that's upside down. You turn it right side up and it says party on. It should say party on. What was his name from Dude, right? Party on, dude.
Party on, dude.
That's excellent.
Bill and Ted?
Yeah. So, anyway, I was talking about DARPA. I love the way it doesn't mention DARPA, but we all know that was DARPA coming up with X and Y proteins to now integrate into DNA for all the unsuspecting. Thoughts?
I saw that. I saw that story that you had on your page. And so I went and, that's interesting you choose it, because I went and followed it up, and I actually had a story up about it. The synthetic amino acids, what is it, 172 or some...
Yeah, 172 it said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unique amino acids that are building blocks for artificial life. They don't even exist in nature, but they're going to use them to build these.
Yeah.
I guess.
These freaks of whatever. I mean, synthetic biology. Is it me, or is that not scary? I mean, that's very scary.
Well, to me, it's just like, we're going to that place where we're going to have Ash and Data and those guys in real fake life.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is going to be as different as alien life. This is like, we talked a couple days ago about ancient times and whatever, and some thoughts about things that could have happened, right? I kind of went off on a tangent there the one day, but I mean, this could be as significant as the missing link that happens when they can't explain how, in such a short evolutionary time span, we went from apes to intelligent humans, right? I mean, they said that there isn't enough evolutionary time between point A and point B for that to have happened naturally. Well, here we go. We had some crazy scientists creating new proteins to make new DNA strands. I mean, I can't even explain how angry, how baffled, how frightened this makes me.
Will they call us God?
We are gods. We absolutely are gods. We have reached a level of goddom that we don't deserve because we have not proven ourselves worthy. I don't think we've proven ourselves worthy to be custodians for life. Have we?
Well, and it's obvious. Well, will be another failure, because obviously if humans had this technology in the past, we destroyed the civilization with it before. So we will be repeating this history, and this idea of a repeated destruction of advanced civilization due to our intellectual immaturity is not new. I mean, the theories are all over the place about how many times humanity has destroyed itself due to our greed and, insecurity. Mm-hmm. And the science fiction, it's a famous trope of our solar system being quarantined due to the barbaric nature of humans, with this out of control technology.
And I wouldn't doubt it, honestly. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, that is as good a theory as anything to explain why we wouldn't have contact with aliens if there were aliens, or why they would hide away from us, or why they would try to change us.
We're actually nasty beasties. And you're right, though. I mean, maybe they're not allowed to contact us, and that's why anything that's there is somewhat covert. You know what I mean? Because maybe they're trying to help us, but they're not allowed to.
Well, man, there's enough cloak and dagger here without invisible cloaks and photon daggers.
Photon daggers. Actually, that would be a great invention.
Yeah. We don't need it. It's all been weaponized. I mean, we don't even need sticks anymore.
So did you say you actually pulled an article on the synthetic,
Yeah, I did, and I'd have to go back and find it on the computer, and I'm not coordinated enough to run my hands and my mouth at the same time.
And it's way earlier there. Is it 6:30 in the morning?
Yes, it is.
Wow, I feel honored, honestly.
Well, I only got up a half hour earlier than normal. But I get up with the light. I'm one of those kind of guys. Been doing it for so long, and I was a baker, so I got up early.
I was too, 4 a.m. I used to work the 4 to 10 a.m. shift.
That's why you don't want to do it anymore.
Oh, hell no. That was actually my first job that I got out of high school. I worked at the bakery at a grocery store making donuts and bread and pizza. And, yeah, I used to get up with all the people stumbling home from the bars.
Yeah, and then you'd have the beery breath in your face and half slobbered out, and half of them were cops, huh?
No, I don't know. I lived in the city, right off the main drag, and it was my very first apartment. And that whole drag, it was like in South Buffalo, which is the Irish section of Buffalo, and there were bars everywhere. And I mean, I was right off the main drag, so you'd have everybody stumbling home at 4. But in the wintertime, it's good.
Fairly accurate stereotype then. The Irish did have a slightly greater capacity for imbibing, right?
Yeah, well, so did the Polish. My family's Polish, so my grandmother had her bar in the Polish neighborhood, which was only probably about 4.5 miles away. But yeah.
Jeez.
All those old Europeans had good drinkers in them, I think.
Well, I think so. I mean, what else are you going to do up there with there's 4 feet of snow around your croft, you know? You're just going to sit there and drink the ale that you make.
I know. Ale's awesome.
I think that's what we did. I don't know. Really. Excuse me. I'm a little stuffy this morning.
Oh, allergies? You guys have any trees budding yet? Or is it still chilly?
Yeah. I think it's the spring. Everything's in flower and blooming and beautiful. So I think that's it.
Yeah, it's been killing me too. I noticed downstairs I have an air purifier in my room just because of the cat hair and the pollen and everything. And I sleep well when I'm in there, but the second I come out in the morning, it's like this ton of bricks. I feel my whole face go psh, up around my eyes. So I'm hoping another few weeks, just about all the trees have at least started opening their buds. So I think probably another 2-3 weeks and it'll be over.
Well, we all have Monsanto artificial trees. There won't be any annoying pollen products to worry about.
No, because guess what? Robo bees will be here. Do you listen? A couple days ago, there was Greenpeace had released a video where it was hypothetical, but it was pretty spot on about Generation 2 RoboBees. Solar power.
I saw that. I think Maddie posted it.
Yeah, it was pretty disturbing, and it was meant to be disturbing, but, you know, these tiny, autonomous robotic devices have come a long way, and, you know, when we first looked at RoboBees, and we've looked at them a whole bunch of times, I'm trying to remember, harvard.robobees.edu or robobees.harvard.edu, I think is the site. That started in 2009. I mean, think about how long ago that was in technological times. It is now 2014. So it's 5 whole years at breakneck speed with unlimited DARPA dollars and Ray Kurzweil, Regina Duggan, and Google all behind it.
It's following Moore's Law.
Yeah.
Every 18 months.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a geometric progression. So the amount of knowledge of it, it is mind-boggling. And I knew all the way back in, I don't know, 1980s that they were having problems with the bees. You can go back and see that it's been going on ever since the genetically modified foods have been out. And it's just got worse. But they've known it. They've hidden it.
No, they have. And I can tell you at least since the early 90s, whenever the X-Files was out, so 84-ish, maybe, if anyone remembers, they had the big greenhouse out in the middle of nowhere with the train that got you there with all the dead mutated people. Remember, they were finding them in New Mexico? All those mutated people in the boxcar. And at the very end of the show, where did it end up? It was in the middle of nowhere, it was like Kansas or whatever, in a greenhouse, and they're going through the woods, and they get in there, and the secret is all about the bees. And you know, I watched every one of those shows. I loved that show so much, but I didn't get what they meant about the bees.
Interesting. I never saw the show.
Oh, you never saw the X-Files?
No, I never.
Holy crap, Mike. I gotta tell you, next winter, because obviously you don't want to do it now, unless you have time at night. If you don't have Netflix, I'll even get you my Netflix login so you can watch them. If you have not seen the X-Files TV series, that had to be, you know, it was all made up, but it was ingenious. It really was. And I'm not a big television fan, but wow, did I love that show. It was just so well done. And it was just so creepy. Yeah, it was like it reminded me of like a Kolchak and the Night Stalker, but add a little bit of FBI and then add a little bit of strangeness. And, you know, now that I know so much more, it wasn't all that strange. It was like a daily dose of WTF that they were spinning stories for, you know?
Or predicted programming.
True. Well, all I know is at the very end, it ended up with a warning about the bees. And it was in this government facility with this big greenhouse where they were growing all this corn, and that's what you're doing. You're walking through all these cornfields. It was like a Monsanto bee warning. And I mean, how would Chris Carter have known that? I mean, honestly, it was like early to mid 90s. I mean, unless it was known in other circles and I was just too out of the loop and naive. I mean, I just gotten out of college. I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff.
Well, most of us were fairly naive. In fact, I think the shock factor of 9/11 woke up far more people than they thought would happen. And it's just snowballs to some extent.
Yeah.
So, you know, all of those movies. Yeah, I think a lot of the media and movies were designed to just get us used to it and get us thinking in that pattern, so when it eventually shows about, we always knew all along that that's the way it was. That's the way the human mind works.
Right. Right.
So I see that pattern all the time in the media, and now I can't even watch the news or the television without getting physically kind of ill at it. Oh my gosh, look at that talking head regurgitating nonsense.
Oh, you yell at him? I yell at him.
Yeah, I do. That's why I can't watch the news when anyone's around with me. Because I do that. I yell at me.
Yeah, I try not to at dinner. But something always slips.
Yeah, I gave up. Actually, we have 6 TVs here at Iota's place.
Wow.
Let's see. I don't know. There's a wall of TVs, and it's our target shooting wall that we're building. I've only heard one of them ever on, and someone was playing a Pink Floyd video on it.
Oh, well, that's okay. Pink Floyd, 6 TVs, it's A-okay in my book.
Wait, that's right. We should wire them all together and get Pink Floyd on all of them, right?
That would be fun. Hey, I found, I've actually had this pinned to the top of my page for, it looks like I did it on the 4th, so about 5 days now. There was a new solicitation on FBO.gov that I found the other day from our good old friends at DARPA, and I wonder if this has anything to do with the new DNA proteins like we were talking about. This is for the Biological Technology Office, which is the new office for cyborgs, right? We heard that clip from RT the other day. Well, here is now the solicitation. It says Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency's Biological Technology Office. The mission of BTO, for short, is to foster, demonstrate, and transition breakthrough fundamental research, discoveries, and applications that integrate biology, engineering, computer science, mathematics, and the physical sciences to expand the National Security Toolkit. Now, I'm going to tell you about this National Security Toolkit. You know, you and I have talked about the Living Foundry program, right?
Yes.
And in the programming world, because I come from that world, one of the things about, let's say, a technology like .NET programming, which was Microsoft's programming framework, it pretty much, that's what a framework is. It's like a toolkit. You have parameters and constraints that you program within. You have a language that they give you. And then you write little modules. And when you write modules, like one of the beauties of .NET is that they were all mix and match then. You could write modules that then you could take part of that module and use it in a new module and create a new application using code that you've already written before. So you didn't have to keep recreating it over and over again. And it made it, like, in the end, you end up with this really nice library, and that's why I like the UCY site. That's actually an application that's been written over 12 years of time with all these modules and all these little, like, programs within a box. So we could have 100 programs running. Each of those little modules, we could have a self-contained program running within one of the boxes, you know? So, like, you have the
little
chat
Legos.
box. Yeah, like little Legos. They're building blocks. You end up with a library of code that then you can plug pieces in when you need it. So from everything that I've been reading about this Living Foundry program with the CATG and now those X and Y, and I know they were doing some other funky stuff there too, the mRNA stuff we're going to talk about. That's probably not today, but I still got to get there because that's this Generation 2 GMO that nobody's talking about. They still think it's like as simple as BT corn and putting glyphosate molecules that blow up bugs' stomachs into the corn. Oh, it's gone way beyond that now, people. It's this they're calling it mRNA or iRNA. I've seen it called two things where they've actually added additional flagella to the back of the RNA organism. I mean, RNA is what builds DNA. And they have now mutated.
It's a messenger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
you have to. That's the thing that zips it up and down and it gives the transcriptions and all that. So yeah, what we're talking about is dynamically changing. the food as you go. As the food's growing, it's mutating itself. It's like the only thing that's going to be able to eat it is the damn androids DARPA's going to build, right?
Mm-hmm. And, there's lots of evidence now that the animals that ingest it are having effects from the food, that they're actually finding that it's spreading into the organism's body. They've found, when Dr. Huber was doing all of his research on, that, I don't know if you guys remember, but I can find it maybe in a few minutes. He was talking about Monsanto creating a new living organism. If you remember, he said that. He found it in the soils of any of the crops. They don't know what it is. He said it's not bacterial, it's not viral, and it's not fungal. It is some new life form. And this is already... Go ahead.
The question, could that be the chemtrails, possibly? The artificial life?
I'll tell you what, it didn't make much sense when I first heard that clip, and that was probably back already 3, almost 4 years ago. It was very early on I ran across that. But it does now when we see what they're releasing here between DARPA and the second generation GMOs. And Monsanto is in the lab with places like Texas A&M, who's getting huge amounts of DARPA funding, to genetically modified tobaccos to make vaccines. You know what I mean? So they've been playing with this shit, and it just makes me wonder if what Dr. Huber didn't find was some of this experimental RNA or some of this experimental new generation DNA. You know what I mean?
How many labs are there? Almost every major university has some kind of biotech lab in it. And almost every one of them has some kind of secret agreement with Genentech or Monsanto or Bayer Science or, every one of them are so deeply embedded at the institutional level with one of these agro giants that you're not going to get any truth, for one. Every one of their research papers are going to be scrutinized and lied about and created statistic anomalies that are just good for the company. You can't believe a damn thing they say, pretty much, huh?
But anyway,
good for you.
Yeah, it's good for you. Eat your cornflakes. One of the things, though, that Dr. Huber discovered is that whatever these substances were, they were passing through to the placenta. And he was warning back then, and if they're passing through the placenta, there was really big concern that these substances were going to pass through to whatever organism then consumed the animal that consumed the GMOs. And I think that that's been pretty much proven now. So as they start messing with these new generations of GMOs and these new generations of DNA to have mutant humans, I don't think there's any way that we're going to be able to stop the contamination of the gene pool. And that's pretty much what's happening at the moment. Our original human version 1 life genome is being polluted.
To the point we can't recover it.
No.
And think about the land races of corn. It's the same thing. In Mexico alone, in central Mexico, there are like 5,000 individual varieties of corn. And,
wow.
And just even one, because they're in open pollination, and they were local land varieties. They did seed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they didn't even go across into the next valley, so the genetics were never contaminated. So over these hundreds of years, they created a pure race of corn that was perfect for the microclimate that those people lived in. Well, Monsanto's going to come and ruin every one of those damn things with their genetic, it's a contamination. And even worse, this is the worst. Nobody's looked into whether or not the few plants that do mutate are super strong and are really going to mess up the future germline. They say it's all sterile, but it's not. Those things will contaminate, and they continue to do it, and it's a genie out of a bottle, and I don't see it, so getting it back in. I save your seeds. Any good seeds you have, save them. Maybe in 20 years, we can get rid of Monsanto and stamp them out, and we can replant the old stuff.
Well, I mean, I really think that that's what the seed vault is all about. Is to, you know, it's not for if we get hit by a meteor and everything gets blown up and we got to regrow. Though, you know, probably would work well there too. But I think it's more to protect our original, you know, plant genomes. Once this gets off to a bad start and all the crops start to fail and everyone starts to get poisoned, they're going to need to be able to go back to the old way of doing things.
Yeah, just put them away and store them well and cold, and we can save the world just by planting what God gave us. If you believe in the Bible, all the seed-bearing plants that God gave us to use, Mount Satan is stealing. He's taking them from. It's a genetic birthright here at this planet for the human race, and we are literally letting them take it, and it's just wrong.
We're letting them take it, patent it, and make a profit on it. And that's what they're doing with even all the Chinese herbs. You know, we watched a clip back a few months ago about one of the big pharmaceutical companies were over in China. Maybe it was Bayer, one of those, Pfizer. They're over in China working with a corporation over there, and they were running genome scans on every single one of the Chinese herbs so they could find out what the ingredients are, create a synthetic version, and then patent it. Of course, they didn't tell you that. They told you that they're working hard to make certain that they discover all the secrets of Chinese herbal medicine so they can bring it to you in the West.
And make it illegal without a doctor's order.
Yeah, wait, here, I think, is it Iota calling in?
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to listen for a minute. You guys speak for a while.
Okay. Good morning, is this Iota?
Good morning. How are you?
Great. How about you?
Not too shabby.
I'm glad you called. I think this is the first time we've spoken.
Indeed it is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For everything. For UCY and everything that you do, Jules. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Iota. And thank you for being a good friend to SLC. Because I think all of us were very happy that somebody was able to be a good friend. And Mike sounds very happy. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's in a happy place.
Everybody deserves to be happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are you thinking about this crazy crap?
What were we talking about?
These new 2 proteins that they're adding to DNA strands. Good old DARPA with their synthetic biology.
The kids at DARPA again, working on genetics.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to think about that, really. They probably need to think more about what they do.
And they don't. Likely. And that's a scary
No, they don't. I don't know. That's what happens when you have too much money and idle hands, I imagine.
And no accountability. I just saw a clip.
And no accountability.
Last night there was a clip and it was titled, "Will the Pentagon ever get audited?" It was a big, rhetorical question mark at the end there because we all know what that answer is going to be.
Indeed. They have a way of getting around that every time.
Well, it's all in the name of national security. We don't need to be audited.
Yeah. No need to question them. They've got everything under control all the time. Don't worry. The government is in control.
Yeah. So
I'm sure there's a couple good people up there, Jules, though. I don't know.
In DARPA?
Yeah, I imagine. I don't know, my son, he's friends with another boy in his school. His dad works for the university there, Montana State University, where I was living in Bozeman. And he did some work, and he met some of those guys. He did, I don't know what if it was like a robotics program when he was in college. But it looked a lot like that cat that they came up with, that android cat or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And he was in a room, and he said it's just kind of like what you think. They're all like, they're just kind of all, they don't have any, they don't have a funny bone in their body. Very serious men. They were all men, and after he was done, there wasn't much said, and then they didn't call him back, but then about a few years later he saw his design, so.
And that's how it works, actually. I've heard that accusation very often.
Not much he could do about it, though, you know.
Mm-mm. And now they have the DARPA Robotics Challenge, so they have all these kids thinking they're competing and having fun when that's exactly what they're doing. They're getting free labor and free minds to help them engineer the robots to help take stuff over when it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, free knowledge for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I asked that. You brought that up. You're talking about the brain and what they're going to model it after. Apparently, it's no one there.
Yeah, yeah.
I would imagine they're modeling after you know, the public, the conscious. My brother, he works for Intel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think he writes the manuals and things like that for him. And
that's actually a decent job, you know. I had a friend who did that for IBM, and
really,
yeah. Actually, my buddy Dave that I worked with when he left, he went to go work for IBM, writing their, I don't remember what they're called. There's a very specific name, but all those little technical manuals for every machine and every component. And it was a great job. I mean, if you're detail-oriented, it was very enjoyable. And Intel, even though they're so in bed with everybody now, and I mean, I think Intel has been all along, we just weren't aware of it. Intel had their little bunny guy campaign, if you remember, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they were made out to be really cool. But I think Intel has been in the middle of it, as IBM has been for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with you there. My dad, it's just kind of, I come from kind of a computer family background, although I'm completely illiterate and have no savvy in that world. But my dad worked for Honeywell for a long time, 30 years.
Oh yeah, they're big in home automation now. Honeywell.
Yeah, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah, the big smart home.
Right. They never went away.
Wow. And weren't they involved too with IBM back in the day of the numbering system? I thought Honeywell was in that group.
Yeah. Yeah, they that's interesting because I had a talk with my dad not too long ago, and he's kind of compartmentalized, but he gets it now. He understands I'm sure he was, working for in general and what they're all about. But he's retired now, so I'm sure he doesn't mind now that he made it out of it. But he worked with a lot of people from IBM and things like that, and GE, and they did that just in time, I believe it's called. The ordering.
Oh, right, real-time ordering, so you didn't have to have
that's what it is.
Huge amounts of inventory sitting around. Just in time, that's what you said that, just in time ordering. And that was with the advent of the internet. When e-commerce first came up, who wants to have 10,000, widgets sitting in a warehouse waiting for someone to buy them? You want just-in-time manufacturing, but you have to have a good back-end supply chain to be able to do that.
Correct. Yeah, he complained a lot about doing that project, though. I'm not sure why. He talked in ways that it sounded like it was going to be bad for the economy more. I mean, he was an intuitive man, and he knew.
Well, it was actually. It did make the economy have a major adjustment, because in the old days, manufacturing always worked where you had a warehouse full of stuff. You know, and we didn't have anything to fall back on. So if with the advent of globalization, if you had one small disaster, all of a sudden now one component out of the 20 that you needed aren't going to be readily available for you to produce your product. So when we had one of the big tsunamis, it might have been in Indonesia back a few years ago, there was a certain silicone component that they were using to make computer memory and hard drives, and everything went to shit. If you remember that, like, you couldn't get memory or hard drives, and any you could get were super expensive, and it was because of the tsunami in Indonesia, and they weren't producing that one chip that they needed.
Interesting.
So that screwed up an entire supply chain. So all the computer manufacturers, any of the hard drive manufacturers, you know what I mean? Like it rippled through the entire economy, and that was the reason why people were crying the blues about just in time.
Yeah, I think he saw that coming too. Exactly, the globalization and it's just an inefficient way. They always talk about how it makes everything efficient, but I've been to a gas station where the credit card machine's not working and everyone's just standing around scratching their heads, wondering what they're going to do for gas because no one has cash on them.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It makes us dumb and dependent on things.
Yeah, it's just a simple example. I mean, it does make it easy, but at times, I wouldn't mind having a robot to do things, but...
Oh, hell no. Like a cleaning robot would be perfect for me.
Right. There's things I don't want to do.
One that scoops the cat boxes, that would be perfect too.
There's an idea. DARPA, are you listening?
Yes. The DARPA kitty box.
Oh, goodness.
Or, you know what? I'd even be happy with the lawn Roomba.
Yeah. One that I wouldn't trip on, though, huh?
True. And one that knew to stop when it saw a chipmunk. You do know that iRobot that makes the Roomba, they're headquartered up in Massachusetts. They actually were a customer of ours for the company that I worked for. And they're very in bed with the feds doing all the robotic stuff. Did you know that? Like, I thought they just made, like, dumb little robot vacuum cleaners. But no. They make industrial robots, and they were working on all kinds of stuff for DARPA. So be careful, because your vacuum cleaner might have a bug in it.
Yeah, a little camera on it.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't doubt it. And they probably have smart technology in there too. You could do the clapper. Vacuum.
Exactly. Good call. Yeah, I don't know. I was watching, I don't watch South Park much, but I just caught the most recent episode of the first season, and it's just hilarious. It talks about, like, the NSA. Have you seen it?
Well, it's funny because I mentioned that episode in chat the other day. I haven't watched South Park in quite a number of years now, but no, not the NSA, the TSA. If you've never seen the TSA episode, you've got to see it. It was so offensive. Just so absolutely offensive. Very worth it.
Yeah, watch the NSA one. They're hilarious. They it's kind of right on what we were talking about. There's just, what are they watching people in their everyday lives? The average everyday soccer mom or person going to work or whatever it is. But the average American, is just simple person, simple people, and for whatever reason, I don't know why they fear the simple American, but they make fun of it in the South Park, how they're, they got just levels of people monitoring just regular people, Oh, we got Bob. He's going to a cookout with his buddies and having beer.
Yeah.
Stay on it, Bill. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one, and they're just walking through. I think Cartman That's it. Cartman got a job with the NSA. So.
Cartman in the NSA. Oh my God! You said there was a new episode this week.
I think it was the first episode of this season. So.
Oh, I'll have to see if I can find that. That would be hysterical.
It is. I'm like you said, I don't watch it much, so.
It makes you wonder, though, like, honestly, I mean, if that is what they're doing, and that's pretty much what it seems like they're doing, they're just scraping everything up, so if they ever need it someday, they'll have trash on you. To what end? Like, is my life that damn exciting? Even doing this stuff, even doing the radio stuff that, oh, it's revolutionary, oh, you're inciting whatever, you know, what? So we're sitting here talking about stuff that if we didn't have a microphone, this is what we'd be doing over beers. You know, dealing with the same shit, bitching about the same stuff. But how is that any different from anything that we've ever done? Think about the 60s and the 70s. You don't think that there were people talking about how much the government was broken, how much you want to get out of Vietnam, all the scandals in Washington? Listen to May Brussels. I mean, it's all the same. It never changed.
Yeah, I don't know. Mike, what do you think?
I think
Mike's still there?
No, he jumped off. He wanted to go home.
Oh, he jumped off. Oh.
I don't get how we can cost justify all the surveillance, and it's all about catching terrorists, and there's all of these, sleeper cells now that happen to be Americans that have become radicalized, so be careful, because they're everywhere. I just don't get it.
Paranoia will destroy you. I suppose that they're up to no good. At some point in time, they're just, it's just the way the mind works. It's the human nature.
And eventually they will use it to round up troublemakers, I think. And I've been watching very closely this whole gun debate and the interworkings or the interleaving of psychiatrists into the picture to be able to determine who is capable and who's not capable of owning a gun according to a psychiatrist. I think eventually I was just seeing that the new DSM, and they have designated all of these issues that were never in there before as now as mental disorders, like depression, which, depression sucks, but I wouldn't call it a mental disorder, would you? I'd call it go get some sunshine and have a few beers with your friends, and that'll fix you up right.
Yeah, that's that word. That's the other thing. We got to be careful. They're taking the language and the words, and I bring that up a lot. We need to question their definition, the boundaries that they're trying to bind us in these defined words. And I question their words. Words are powerful.
Words are powerful.
And I was chatting with Walter a couple weeks ago, and he's a great. I love that show. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you listened. I was so happy when he left the other network. He told me we had actually asked him if he wanted to come over, and he said no, he wasn't doing radio anymore. And so then one day, about 6-8 months ago, he just popped up online one day and he messaged me and he says, I'm doing a radio show again. I was like, well, come on over. Yeah, I really enjoy his show on the weekends.
Yeah, I enjoy everybody's show. Thank you.
Oh,
I don't have time for everyone's, but been pretty busy lately. But definitely try and catch as many as I can.
Oh, great.
But anyway, yeah, the words. He talks a lot about words. Words are very important, and it's all about. It seems like they just pervert the word, all the words. The words are now degraded from what they really were, and Hal brings it up, just the definition. They really are the definitions of our world, our reality. It's our narrative. So if we know what the true meaning of the words are, then the narrative changes very quickly. And so I think this venue that you've created for everyone is it's that line they didn't want us to cross at some point, to question the word, and that's what I like about this, and they can't stop it. We're at that point, that stage in our development on this planet where it's been arrested for too long, and people are waking up to the arrested development, and we will adapt. Generally, adaptation has only occurred from an anthropological point of view when the Earth changed suddenly, unfortunately, whether it was a meteor, whatever way it happened, and that's always under question. But something major has happened a few times on this planet, and that's when humans have adapted most. So whether it's financial this time or whatever, I imagine a financial change would make people adapt, but I don't know if it would make them adapt enough.
Yeah, disruptive. I mean, it's unfortunate that for major change you need to have something that's majorly disruptive.
Yeah, and I think the powers that be, the controllers, the power brokers, they know that it's everything's a cycle, and they know from they do hide a certain amount of knowledge because it's too revealing if the average person figures it out. And all we need to do is look outside, that everything is in cycles. Nature's cycle, and human nature's a cycle. It's
natural law. It has to follow that law. Everything from the smallest atom to the grandness of the universe. It's all cyclical.
Mm-hmm. Everything's contained in nature, and there's nothing outside of it. So they know this, and they have to play within that the rules. They know there's rules, and a lot of people don't know that. They do. There's a certain amount of I don't know. They have to have trust within themselves in order to make their plan work, and it goes the same with the people on this planet. Need to trust nature and trust in her ways, and know that she's always provided and always will. Just got to take care of her. She'll take care of us. But going back to your question, I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit, but it is the cycle, and they know that the cycle is going to come around, and it's something they can't control. The Earth does change, and it's been written historically, and I don't know. It's hard to get a hold of that information because they do try to hide a lot of it and obscure it, and then the religions try and put fear in people not to find this knowledge. And when you do find the knowledge, there's usually some type of taboo attached to it. You're not supposed to know it, so.
Yeah, or demon.
Yeah, something. They co-opted almost all knowledge because they know, like, we've got what is that? Theosophy?
Yes,
I think it's called. Yeah, that was kind of co-opting of alchemy when alchemy was becoming popular back in the turn of the century again, and people were starting to discover it was another renaissance. It seems like they've co-opted every renaissance because they know that it's viral. Truth. People love it.
I almost looked at alchemy as like medieval. Oh damn! I lost the word now. I almost looked at alchemy as medieval. I forgot the word. Damn it! No, it's too early. It's kind of like biotech. You know, I mean, they were trying to take elements and convert one element into another element is basically what they were doing. It was old school, you know, biotech and engineering. Chemical engineering, I think, is probably what it would be closest to.
Yeah, they discovered a lot of the metals and things during that time, during those of experimentation. Yeah, it's very obscured history on purpose. Not only did the philosophers and sages obscure their knowledge, but it has been obscured by mistranslation, purposefully, and sometimes, you know, the indoctrination process. You know, you stroke the ego and you lead you see someone going down a path, and they'll lead you down a path slightly off of that one that they want you on by giving you, you know, book deals and whatever. You know, your ego gets stoked.
Right, for their own benefit.
Away from, yeah, for their benefit of just keeping you away. I don't think a lot of these people even know. You know, like you brought up Sitchin, he was a Freemason. Now, whether he was a, you know, horribly bad guy, or if he was just, his ego was, you know, he was just one of those people possessing power. I think that's probably what we're seeing a lot. They just corrupt, and like you said, they want to know the dirt. So if you do decide to go down that route and choose that route of power, they got you.
They can pull that out.
The dirt.
Yeah, right. And throw it in your face.
The honey pot on the elevator trick.
Exactly. You know, my whole thing is, I've never really done anything that I'm that ashamed of. You know what I mean? And if there was anything that I did that I was that ashamed of, it was probably like 25 years ago, and it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be squeaky enough to try to run for office, and anything they dug up on me, I'd point and laugh. Jules for Congress.
Yeah.
I want insider trade.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, one of the things you were talking about, moving away from nature, I see that, I mean, they've spent eons trying to keep the people ignorant. And if you go all the way through history, you always had, like, the ruling class. I mean, we were talking the other day about my friend and I having this discussion, and he was insisting that the Roman Empire never died. That it's between the Vatican and the Crown are still the same ruling classes that have always been around. And, you know, I really started to think about it, and I was like, my God, I think he might be right. It's the same creepy people that are still running the show, and the way they do that is by keeping us ignorant to the facts, keeping us ignorant to the secrets, keeping it all locked up under the Vatican, right? And yes. under Windsor Castle. You know, the story that came out the other day about finding, I don't remember the name of the protein. It was a P-something-11. That youth protein. Did you hear any of that? In mice, there's this blood protein that they've discovered that mice have it and humans have it. And if you transfuse blood from a younger organism into an older organism, that older organism immediately starts to become younger in all of their biological systems. And they've traced it.
Regeneration.
Yeah. And they've traced it to, I don't know if it was a protein or some sort
Plasma.
of enzyme. It might have been an enzyme. Here, I'll see if I can find a clip in a few minutes and we'll play it. But the scary thing is they were saying that as, you know, if you were doing a transfusion, so you were doing blood from the young mouse into the older mouse, and then you took the blood from the older mouse and you put it into the younger mouse would get older, and the older mouse would get younger. And, like, I don't know, I'm not really huge into conspiracy. I mean, in my own private time, yeah, I love to, like, toss around ideas as to what ifs, but especially doing radio, I hate, unless I've read a bunch of documentation and research that's been done and I've been following the story, you know what I mean? I try not to talk off the top of my head about something I don't understand or something that I don't know the origins of, where this has all come from. But there have been so many stories about elite eating babies or eating fetal tissue or, you know what I mean? Like crazy stuff that, all this demonic crap. I'm like, all right, this is just all too far out there. Not that I haven't looked into stuff like that, but from a news perspective, I just always felt that it was outside of the realm of, something that should be immediately dealt with. But after I saw this whole blood transfusion protein thing and them saying that, this could be the fountain of youth and blah, 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 I was like, holy shit, maybe they have been sucking babies all this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him, Jules.
I mean, how frightening is that? And so what does that mean? That we're gonna clone creatures in the future to be able to suck the young blood out of them?
Probably means people better wake up and smell the coffee soon.
Yeah.
On in front of their eyes.
It was just very disturbing. And again, like I've said so many times, there are no ethics. There's no ethics at all. We have spider goats, okay? We're gonna have mosquito horses at some point, or whatever. And nobody's watching the hen house. It's free for all.
I think that was the question when perhaps humans were enhanced from, I think we were cloned. I know that's I'm going to throw that out there on the radio, because it seems like we've come full circle, and the Sitchin stories that you talked about and everything seems to go back to an ancient prior knowledge of knowing natural generation and regeneration. And the ancient I Ching chart is basically the 64 codon DNA chart. And so we're coming full circle on this ancient knowledge now. And again, they wanted to keep that quiet. And they've known about it forever, since the beginning. The controllers have probably been watching, I imagine. Because the control of this planet would take something almost exopolitical in its power to keep the families together on this planet for hundreds of years would almost be impossible. The way they act, the way they feed off each other. They feed off of us, so they're parasitic. And I imagine our origins are from clones, kind of from the Adam. The beginning was the Adam tribe, the Adam DNA.
Well, can I mention something too? You were talking about words and mistranslations, and if you've done any study into like some of the creation myths and the ancient texts from different societies throughout history, one of the things that, especially with the Bible, I took a class. I was a literature major, so one of the classes, and I focused on creation myths and mythology and things like that. And one of the things that my professor talked about, he was a Hebrew scholar, and he had shown us, we spent the entire semester reading this Bible, which I'd never read before. And I gotta say, it was pretty damn raunchy. Anyone who hasn't read the Bible, try reading it for fun. I just couldn't believe. What was that?
It's an intense book.
It is an intense book. But, one of the things about it is that people read it their entire lives trying to decode what it means. And one of the things that our professor was talking about was it had been translated from 6 or 8 languages from the original language before it ever made it into English. And so he went back to the Hebrew and was showing how when you translate from Hebrew to like Greek, let's say, you would have to look at all the surrounding words and try and figure out what the context is. And if you misinterpreted one word, he was doing translations and misinterpretations and showing how easily the original premise or the original thoughts became bastardized just doing one translation. But once you've gotten into 6 or 8 translations before you get to a final language, it's no wonder that it's all confused. So you were talking about Adam. Think about Adam like being the beginning. And Adam, what is the basic building block of all matter? Is atoms, right?
You got it.
The power of words is important. And, like the word mother. Somebody was talking about the, some of the Polynesian, civilizations and them being separate. But I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of documentation, even though we said that there weren't, connections between these westernized, indigenous peoples, all the pyramid civilizations, let's say. If you look, I had a book, and I don't know, maybe it was even a Von Daniken book, but I kinda like Von Daniken. But he was showing how all of these pre-Columbian civilizations had very similar words for basic things in life, such as mother, or water, or fire. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's innate. Now, language is innate inside of every being, no matter where they come from. I just think it's universal. You're right. And that also points that we perhaps came from one place too, and all had the same original language. And just like in the original story tells, or the stories that are told from all corners of the world, is the same. Slightly varied, like you said, just because it's when you tell it from one person to the next, there's going to be a little change.
Right. Well, there's that game, right, where you start with a sentence and you whisper in someone's ear and you go around the circle. If you've ever played that at a birthday party or whatever when you were a kid, it gets warped to the point of absolute hystericalness by the end. And that's just, 10 people in a circle. Imagine generations or thousands of years and 8 translations,
Yeah, that's a very good example. And it's a good simple example of how easily it is changed quickly. And if you don't have a good storyteller telling the proper truth, then it's obscured right away. And it gets lost. But there's always the truth in the story, there's that thread that keeps it going. Right. People need to just kind of question. It's the questioning. And, but yeah, there's a great book I read about, it was a while back, about a year ago now maybe. Easter Island, I don't know who the author was, but it was written by a archaeologist and his wife in the, I want to say 60s, early 60s. And, incredible book. Like, I don't know, some people then wrote books. They were just, I don't know, people were more well-rounded and the ego wasn't as big.
Right.
I feel, 40, 50 years ago. And, books have changed a lot. And I think I mentioned another book to you. It was Atlantis by Ignatius Donnelly. I got a hold of that book. And that is a great book, but you got to find one that's like pre-1950s. It's not all edited. Even the one I had was, I think they edited out the Vatican Codex.
Oh, really?
Kind of strange. Yeah, obviously they thought that wasn't important. So they edited that out of the book, which sparked my interest. I really wanted to see what he had to say about that. But getting back to the Easter Island book, they talked about what you were just discussing. The elders knew the story. And when the elders told the archaeologist said, it was very interesting. You had everyone would gather around and they'd all sit in their huts or whatever. And the elder would tell stories. No one would say anything. And they'd give him all that respect by not saying anything, because he'd have to finish telling the story. Sometimes these stories are very long. And some of the stories, though, that were told of I mean, this stuff happened so long ago. They're not even sure how long ago. But they had stories like from the beginning of time, and the elders told it so matter-of-factly that well, they had one, what was it, the inhabitants of Jupiter had, what was it, settled the concordance of all the planets. So they knew that the people of Jupiter had, or someone in their historical timeline had told them matter-of-factly that the people from Jupiter had settled all the planets or explored all the planets first. And then they said that the people you will come to know, the first people you will come to know, not from Earth, are the people from Venus. And they just said that. They would tell the youth these things that they were told. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. And there was just a long list that this archaeologist wrote down at the very end of the book. And he wanted to note them because they were so strange that they told those stories. Another one was that there's a tree of life that still existed from, the biblical story. The tree of life was alive. There was a few specimens, and they existed on an island near Easter Island. So in 1964, there were still 4 specimens alive of the original tree of life, which is interesting. So.
Well, and that's something that was interesting about Easter Island is, they questioned for years why those Moab were just sitting there. They were like, what happened to all the people? And I guess through archaeological evidence, they've discovered that one of the things that may have happened is that they deforested too quickly because they were growing too fast, and they cut all the trees down, and they basically had an ecosystem collapse there.
I believe it. Yeah, they were very smart. From the book, it's just an amazingly written book. I wish I could remember the author's name. My daughter has it. I gave it to her to read. But they gained the trust. Him and his wife gained the trust of the natives, and they brought. It was late at night, and one of the elder ladies brought the wife to a cave. They snuck out because it was they were guarded. The natives at that time were kept herded and fenced, and they weren't allowed to go outside of this area. I forget who, Argentina or one of those countries controls it. I forget, but they don't treat them very nicely. And to this day, I don't know if they're still treated that way or not. But wasn't very good then. The conditions were horrible for them. But they took a liking to this archaeologist's wife because she was Polynesian, French Polynesian. So they got a kick out of her. And they brought her to a cave and showed her a skull, and she said that the skull was elongated and that the skull was, according to the woman, I want to say at least 800 years old, if not older than that. The skull had perfect teeth. Sorry, what?
No, you just faded off for 1 second. I almost thought I lost you, but you're there. Go for it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that the skull had perfect teeth and an elongated skull. And she said that was just almost impossible. So who were these, the first people on the Easter Island was the question. Another interesting thing about Easter Island was that the archaeologist noted that he asked why there wasn't any moss growing on the older statues, because the statues were made over generations. The older ones were made perfect, and he noted that, and they're heavier and bigger, and they weren't growing any moss, and the natives said that's because they're still alive. When they made those, they made them so they were living, and he thought that was kind of strange because all the others made had moss growing on them and were deteriorating. But the ones that were older were still in perfect condition.
So they were maybe accessing some sort of ley lines or energy that tapped them in, so their biological material was on the life note, the life wave or something. Is that what you're saying? I mean, like the moss?
Something to that effect, Jules. You're right. He did know that there was some kind of strange placing of them, but he couldn't figure it out. He was baffled. You know, he didn't know.
Well, it made me think like you would have fungus growing on dead things. And moss typically grows in damp, wet areas, you know, damp, dead wood, let's say, or even on rocks and stuff. But think about it, you know, like you were talking, when you mentioned, the Sumerian texts and stuff, and, you know, history repeating itself and hidden knowledge. I truly believe that we have repeated things many times, and that we get to a point where we do become like gods, like now. And here's the thing. We have Monsanto and all these other entities like DARPA that are working very hard to pull us away from the biological. And if you watch any of these science shows that they have out now, they are convincing the kids that this is the next evolution of human, is to merge with machine. And by us merging with machine, like you were saying a little while back about, you know, Earth has everything that we need to exist on it. And it's all cyclical, and we're all tapped into the same thing, from the smallest organism to the expanse of space. And absolutely 100% true. And I think that there's a lot more, obviously, that we don't understand. I think we still interact. We are connected as part of a living organism. We might not know how to manipulate that, you know, for manifestation or whatever, but alchemy was a good example. I think that, you know, when they first started tinkering with that stuff and learning to manipulate elements as well as use words to help manipulate things, I think that there was a lot. I mean, sound and waves are key to a lot of the universe that I don't think we actually understand the power of it yet. And by taking us away from the biological to the synthetic, that actually would be the last nail in the coffin for them to win. You know, the way we would win if they were trying to get us away is to destroy it all, so we had to start over again from scratch. And I know that's really sad, but if an asteroid hit us and blew it all up, we'd probably be better off. Because at least biology would have a chance to start over again without the pollution and the takeover that they're in the process of right now.
Yeah, I think it's happened before. I can't say for certain.
No, I can't either, but
the evidence seems to point there. I mean, there's scientists out there that have come up with enough data saying there was some, you know, and enough people wrote about it. I mean, the thing I got a problem with is they're not myths. These aren't just stories.
No,
people just didn't write stuff, and, you know, when you're going to go carve something in stone, you carve. The only thing we carve nowadays is memorials and tombstones. Mm-hmm. Things we want to remember, things that are lasting, things we don't want to forget. It was the same way. Humans haven't changed. You know, that they had papaya paper and figured out methods of making paper a long time ago. And that book by Ignatius Donnelly, Atlantis, he was a politician from Minnesota. That's really cool. And he was able to get into the Library of Congress and look at some of that really cool data that they probably don't let anyone look at anymore, the truth. And he, you know, he makes that point of saying, you know, Plato would have written then, everything he wrote then was amazing and true. But
Plato was the one that mentions Atlantis, right? Is that why
exactly.
Yeah, and everyone's saying, "Oh, but it was just an allegory. Oh, it was just a myth." Yeah.
Then it'd be like Einstein writing a love romance book, in the middle of his
discovering relativity.
Which would be incongruent, right? Yeah. And so people just need to step back and when we're told these things, this incongruent thought process, or of seeing these incongruencies in our thought process, we need to see them. And I didn't always see them. When you keep the mind entertained and detained and off of, and just everyday life, it's hard to focus on the truth. But
well, the way I always equated that was kind of what they're doing today, calling people like us who dig up truth. They call us conspiracy theorists, and they try to discredit you. And I mean, I studied all those creation quote unquote myths. That's what they called them, and I believed that they were myths up until probably 5 years ago when I really started looking at them, and I'm like, I have a feeling that these might be a bit historical. This isn't all fantasy. Just because there might be things in here we don't understand or things that are mistranslated, this is something that has been penned down from the ages. You go to a more ancient civilization than us or the Europeans, go to the ancient Chinese texts or some of the ancient Indian texts that go back 6 or 10,000 years, and take a look at some of that stuff. I mean, there are things that they talk about in there that are echoed throughout their history as matter of fact that, honestly, I don't think they're myths. I think that things happened, they were, maybe they were embellished a little bit for the sake of the story, but I don't think it was all myth. And I don't necessarily think, even if you go back to like some of the Greek gods and things, who's to say that was all pretend? Who's to say that they didn't do, I honestly think that there was genetic engineering already in the past. I think that that's where we ended up with some strange creatures such as like platypus or, what's the other freaky one? There's a few freaky creatures out there that now that we have the Genome Project, they've run those animals' genomes and they're like, wow, this is kind of weird. We got DNA from like a pig and a monkey and a horse, you know what I mean? Like things that normally wouldn't mate in nature, and they happen to all exist in this one strange animal. Well, was it an ancient Isle of Dr. Moreau? I don't think we'll ever know, but I don't think that like the Minotaur, let's say, was a myth. It probably was some animal-human hybrid gone bad in the past.
Yeah, it's a relative of George Soros.
Yeah. No, I totally think so. Soros. I totally think though, I don't think they want us to believe that it's myth because then we won't put any stock into what it says. And if there are any grains of truth that get through, we're not going to pay attention to it because you know what? That's all pretend.
It would be nice to know the historical truth. That's all. Without them convoluting it all the time. That's all I've ever wanted to know.
Me too. When I'm dead, that's all I ask. I want to know the answer. Please, before I disperse. I just want to know the answer. What happened?
Yeah. Did you ever watch, or did you ever read the magazine Omni?
Yeah. I think I have an Omni. No, actually, I don't have it. It's IO9 now. I have a story about, but no, I did. I read Omni, Discover, Scientific American, and Popular Mechanics, which is now, or Popular Science, which I heard all kinds of horrible things about what they did to their people and whatever, but yes, I do remember Omni.
Even when we were younger, that is about the time when our development was arrested, it seems like in the early 70s or late 60s, because I was reading about all these great things, and, you know, I just, where are they? What happened to them? What happened to all this technology that we were supposed to have? How come we're still driving cars?
How come we're not on the moon?
Exactly. Like how it should be more simple than this. Like we're digressing. We're not evolving. It's not going anywhere. We've been stopped for some time now.
Well, doesn't
They
it
keep giving
seem
us the same crap?
Doesn't it seem odd though that, I mean, it was 69 when we sent up the Apollo mission. So we're at, let's see, 45 years since we've been to the moon the first time. Space 1999, you know, I remember watching that show and I was like, wow, we're going to have moon bases someday. Honestly, we are beyond technologically advanced, I think, to be able to have had a moon base. Why don't we? And I mean, I don't know if there's aliens on the dark side. There's so many different reasons why people say that we don't, but doesn't it seem like just from human progress, the moon is like our closest satellite. It's really not that far away, right? We can send up space shuttles and things. I know they talk about once you get outside the magnetosphere, and my friend and I actually did a little research one night and started looking at what the actual height is of the space station from Earth and whether or not it is still within the magnetosphere, and it is. It's not outside of it. And he was showing me back in the days of the Soviet capsules when they were doing research, all the fried monkeys and dogs that they roached in the capsules, sending them outside of the magnetosphere. So he was saying, like, any of the space travel stuff, he was actually on the kick that the whole moon landing was a fake. And here's why. Because all of this research that the Russians had done has shown that once they got outside of the magnetosphere, they were roached by radiation. So, you know, have we really progressed as far as we said we have? You know? Or is this technology that they may have, but they're not giving it to us? You know, maybe it's stuff that they've already accomplished, but the knowledge is not going to be shared with us.
Have you looked in, you know, I heard your interview with your father.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
That was awesome.
You enjoyed that? I promised I think it was almost 3 years I've been promising people that I would get my dad on someday to talk about Antarctica. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Have you looked into any more of that since?
Such as?
Well, just some of that going on down there, the Nazis' interest and just the interest in Antarctica.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I haven't. My sister and I have spent quite a number of years trying to find info, and it seems like just recently there's more and more stuff coming online. It was a very secretive place. Like, there really isn't a lot about any of it out there. Even about the nuclear reactor, Old Leaky, they had down there. Jimmy Funky had sent me something a few months back, and I had found, like, it almost looked like the precursor document to that, where they show the whole operational schedule for all the years that reactor was down there and all the issues they had. But I mean, that information just isn't out there. And, you know, I wish he could get some of the guys that he knew. My sister had a campaign going on when she first found out that there were one of my dad's former Navy buddies had contacted him to tell him that a lot of the guys had ended up with this weird leukemia, and they thought it was that nuclear reactor. That's what got us talking about. And he never even mentioned a nuclear reactor when he told us the story when we were kids, you know. So I started asking questions, but my sister had found a couple news groups online and had posted who she was and if anyone had been down there at this time to contact her. And she actually made contact with 2 or 3 other guys that were down there with my dad, but I don't know if my dad ever talked to them then after that. I think it would be interesting to get a few of the guys talking about when they were down there together, because just like we were talking with, myth or story, and it goes around the circle, everybody sees things, even though you're in the same situation, you see things differently. And like the fact that my dad remembers, he was going down with Von Braun. They had conversations, they sat on the plane together, and then he was whisked off and never seen again. And they were down there for a whole year. And in 1966, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot in Antarctica.
Yeah, flights aren't coming and going.
No.
Like you said.
And there wasn't anywhere to take a helicopter to. Like, where'd you go?
Yeah, I think you mentioned there was no Hilton down there, right?
No, there was nothing. There was the McMurdo Sound Base, and then you had the Russians, and I'm trying to remember, I don't even think the Chinese were down there yet.
Did the Germans have anything down there?
Yeah, I don't know. I should ask them if there was a German base, because, that's what all of the conspiracy was the German base, and they're flying UFO machines.
Yeah.
May talks.
That was an interesting point you brought up about him being an experiment for Mars, too. Life on Mars or something like that, I think.
Well, that was May brought that up. May Brussels.
Oh, that was May. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I had never heard that before, but my dad said, yeah, it was pre-moon launch.
Wow.
And Von Braun was studying the Van Allen radiation belts, and they were putting them into isolation. And that really kind of, they even looked like a moon base. Just the little barracks. But yeah, I think they were.
How long was he there?
Each mission was a year. So you had 6 months of daylight and 6 months of darkness with no human contact beyond your crew.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. And here's the thing though, the one thing that my dad told me between my dad's story and then that one episode of May Brussels where she talks all about the Nazis and Antarctica and Von Braun, the one thing my dad had mentioned that really clicked with me with that episode, because May was talking about the Nazi UFO program and Von Braun having been in charge of Operation Paperclip. He was the lead scientist. My dad was telling me that and I think he even talked about this, during winter over, especially in the mid-60s, there still was no way, because of the cold and because of the lack of light, for any human flying vehicle to take off or land. Okay? It just didn't happen. During the 6 months of darkness, you were in absolute isolation. Nothing came in and nothing went out. Except that they kept seeing these craft on radar that were landing and taking off, and they were leaving circular melt marks in the ice. And that's why my dad was telling me they were UFOs, but I had never, he told me that story for years, but I, at that point, still had never heard of the Nazi UFO program that supposedly was going on in Antarctica. So,
and he saw one.
Right? He did, yes, and if you put all those pieces together, then it's like, what the hell?
Didn't they see it take off?
He said that they saw it take off, yeah. So what is it?
And it didn't look like anything built from this planet, I believe he mentioned, or am I mistaken? It was beyond our technology. Like, it just didn't look like anybody could make it.
Yeah, I don't remember him saying that, but we were pretty...
I
was drinking
sure.
that night. I gotta grease him up to get him to talk about that story. It's definitely not something you can get him up for his first cup of coffee and say, all right, Pops, let's talk Antarctica. That's why I never was able to get him to call in here, because he's on his exercise bike, sucking his mocha.
Okay.
But
well, yeah, that was a good interview. It's definitely ask him a few more questions, and I wonder if there's any of those Russian fellows still alive that they saw when they met up at that UFO that they were called out to look at. He said there's a Russian crew that came out and witnessed.
Yeah, there was.
Is any of those gentlemen still alive?
That's a good idea.
It's probably impossible to find. It'd be very hard to find out, I'm sure. Not impossible,
But you know what? With the internet now, I could start a little campaign looking for Russians who were on the ice in '66. Yeah. Nothing bad. We just have, some people from the U.S. side that saw some stuff. You know, they used to go over there and hang out with those guys every once in a while, too. They'd go have beers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was talking about
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
And
That
in the
would be a lot of fun.
60s, they were still, when was the Bay of Pigs? He almost ended up in the Bay of Pigs.
Wow.
When was that?
Wow.
It was right around then, right? Wasn't that around 66 or so? And you know why he went to Antarctica? Because they gave him a choice. Go to Vietnam or go to Antarctica. And he's like, screw that. I'm going to Antarctica. That's how he ended up there.
Tough choice. Yeah, Antarctica.
And he's like, oh yeah, they did the psychological profile and they were asking all these questions to make sure you weren't going to like all go crazy down in the ice. I knew the answers they wanted to hear. I was like, oh my God, you flubbed the whole interview?
Yeah. I talked with a gentleman one time and I was doing some plumbing and ran into this guy. He was I think he was doing HVAC, the ducting and stuff like that. And we started chatting, and he's like, yeah, I just got back from Antarctica. I was like, what? He says, yeah, I went down there and did HVAC on all the laboratories down there. They redid that because they say that they sink. So when they raise them up, they have to redo and add ducting to them or something like that. They're on like stilts or something.
Oh, I wonder if they like melt down a little bit.
You know, something like that. They melt down a little bit. Yeah, I think that's what he said. It was a while back, and he said when he got off I think they flew him. I forget the route that he went, but it was kind of weird the way that he went. And wherever he stopped before he ended up in Antarctica, they issue your clothes, and you get some pretty Stay Puft Marshmallow, poofy down North Face, you know, like expedition gear. Well, I think you get a couple pairs of them. By the time you're done, they're all oily and greasy and destroyed. But
yeah,
he said he got off the plane or the helicopter or whatever he took down there. He said it was 100 below.
Yeah.
100
I mean,
below.
I couldn't even imagine temperatures like that.
Yeah, he couldn't breathe when he got out of the plane.
No.
They're like, it's cold, it's cold. He's like, oh, I can handle it. I'm from Montana. He's like, no, it's cold.
Yeah, like nose hair freezing cold.
Yeah, that's it. Nose hair freezing cold. He said that the down coats really, you could still feel it through them. You know, you still had to work and move, otherwise you'd feel it. So.
Typically they stop off in New Zealand or Australia. Yeah, there's a big American base in New Zealand. That's where my dad got his leave when he got off the ice. That's how he met my mom. That's how I ended up with a New Zealander for a mother. That was my dad's. Go ahead.
My brother's wife, her family is they're all from New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you should go if you ever get a chance to go. You should.
Long plane ride though, like 20 hours or something.
Yeah, it's a lot shorter now. When we went in the 70s, it was a 36-hour flight.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty major, and I was just a little kid. I mean, I went once at 2, and the second time I was 9. And, yeah, it's a really long flight, but oh my God, you want to talk about like just breathtakingly beautiful? Even the Lord of the Rings movies doesn't do it justice for standing there in person. It's just so incredibly majestic.
I've heard that. It's like a huge glacier park or something like that. Just
the whole country it's all just beautiful mountains and craters and ocean, and it's just incredible. And the birds, and just birds everywhere with beautiful, like, the fantails. I remember the fantails used to come every day with the, just ornate feathers, and the magpies. They got these wild talking magpies that hang out. I don't know, it's very different. I mean, when I was there too in the 70s, they still were not really into international trade. So they very much were, isolationist. I mean, globalism hadn't started yet. So there weren't really that many modern conveniences there. They had some, but it wasn't like here. They were 20 plus years behind us in technology back in those days.
Yeah, I was talking to one of her relatives, my brother's wife, her relatives, when they're getting married, they all came to the States. And so I was talking with one that was living there in New Zealand, and that's basically what he said too. He's like, we're much more advanced here than they were, and that was right around even 2000, you know.
Well, the sad fact of the matter
we were still up on them, yeah. They still hadn't really.
They sold them out now. I just get so angry when I see that people posting pictures of chemtrails in New Zealand, or people posting they're having marches against Monsanto. They want to plant all the GMO crops down there, and I'm like, don't do it. And they wouldn't even let nuclear submarines into any of their ports. They were a complete anti-nuke country. And I don't even know if that's the case anymore. You know, they've sold them out. And it's very, very angering.
Yeah. Yep.
Where was, do you know where his family's from, the North or the South Island?
I'm not sure on that, actually. What's the bigger town there?
There's a couple big cities. You got Auckland, you got Christchurch,
Auckland.
Auckland.
Yeah, it was on that one.
Yeah.
I remember the guy I was talking to, he worked with the government. He was the Ministry of Transportation.
Uh-huh.
Ministry of Transportation or something like that.
So he probably was up north then.
Is that up north?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. My New Zealand geography, but I'm pretty sure that Auckland is up north. Christchurch is down south. I know that for a fact.
Okay. Yeah, don't ask me. I don't know.
One of the other.
That's been there, Jules. Come on.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to mention quickly, just bouncing back to Antarctica for a second, was, you know, when you add the May Brussels, and I'm hoping, just so you guys know, I cut, thanks to Dan. Dan had put together all the part 1 and part 2s of the Mays all the way through 82, 83. He might have even gone to 1984. But I had to get them into exact 1 hour increments then, because some are short, some are long. So we don't have like dead air or whatever, you know, for the last 2 minutes of the show. So I put filler in, you know, at the end. So I cut 12 or 15 of them the other night. So any of the Mays that are going to be running now for the next few months will be all these new ones from the second half of 1982 that we haven't heard yet. But that one that we heard that talked about the Operation Paperclip and the Nazi UFO program that correlated with my dad's story was in the first half of 82. So I'm hoping in the second half of 82 she has a little more information. But what I want to point out as well is, I don't know if you've ever read about the story of Admiral Byrd and his experiences down in Antarctica. He was one of the very first explorers down there, and I believe not the very first, but one of the first, at least from a military perspective. And I think it was the early 1900s. But he was the one who disappeared and then talked about the whole hollow Earth thing and coming across this other civilization and these amazing people, and then it was sunny and they had water and birds and trees. And I mean, if you read his account, the man was like a pretty well-to-do multi-star general who, to me, from everything I read about him, really didn't seem like the type of guy who would go off on fits of fancy, you know?
You'd be another example of Plato.
Exactly. So, I don't know. To me, it makes me think that there is something to Antarctica and something being strange down there. Whether it be, you know, man-made, or whether it be something that they just don't want us to know about.
Yeah, the Nazis had a huge interest in Antarctica, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I came across some weird, I don't know what website it was, but they had posted or put out some type of questionnaire to the people that were in the Nazi Party if they wanted to go to the Hollow Earth. And was a strange notice to the public. You know, if in fact it's true, and what I saw, that document was in fact real, then they were asking their public if anyone wanted to go, because they had said that they had found the hollow earth and that it was livable and it was okay to live down there.
So would it be like
if that's true or not, I don't know.
Let's repopulate the Aryan population in Hollow Earth, kind of like we're talking about now, doing the establishment on Mars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. You know, that would be something to look into, and I really haven't dug up more than just the initial story on Admiral Byrd and his story about that, but I almost think there's something to it, whether or not.
I read about that story, I believe. There's this really good book that I came across, and it had basically all those theories and stories, and I wouldn't even call them theories. These are they're just stories, and of all the accounts of Hollow Earth, or people coming from underneath the earth, and there's a lot of them throughout history, and that story about Byrd is in there. And I remember reading it, and I believe he was the one that discovered the underground, world that you were talking about. In the didn't he find the train that was still it was like thousands of years old, and it was way more advanced than anything we had, and it ran through underground, and it was, I think it was in that book. I want to say it was, I can't think of the name, Jules, but if I find it, I'll throw it up on the web or something. But all those stories are in there, and I think he talks about huge butterflies. Is that the same story?
I think so. There was all kinds of wondrous things, kind of like one of those old movies like Jason and the Argonauts. Hey, guess what? We have about 10 seconds left. So I want to say thank you so much for calling in, Iota. It was great. Call in anytime. Thank you too, SLC Mike. It was an awesome Friday. Everybody have a beer. Do something fun today. And it's Mother's Day weekend. Don't forget, people. Mama needs some love. All right, guys. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm sure I'll be around. Maybe I'll pop in Saturday night. Again, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in, guys. Take care.